Guys, uh, in our class, design plan, um, I'm just gonna start talking about unit plan here. So our group members are Jamie Salazar, EJ Feng Chang, myself, Patrick Shanahan, and Aaron Linuma. The subject that we will be teaching is history, social studies, aiming to teach fourth grade students. The name of the unit is How California Became an Industrial and Agricultural Power. Links to prior knowledge. The students is what must students know before beginning the unit. And they should know about California's development as a state. Students must be able to understand what the entertainment industry is and how it has influenced California's upbringing. The overall expectations, including standards, principles that will be used to create and teach the class, as well as ground rules for the whole unit, and it will be broken down later. Our assigned standard is students explain how California became an agricultural and industrial power, tracing the transformation of California's economy and its political and cultural development since the 1850s. And our general ground rules are respect, the open-mindedness, encouragement, participation, and reflection, which we'll be breaking down later. And there are 4 lessons in this plan, which we'll be focusing in one only. Okay, Jimmy.
Yeah. Moving on to how the material will be broken down into the lessons, we want to focus on different aspects of the unit as a whole. So for example, if we're looking into agriculture, we'd probably go into more research on how agriculture helped California develop as a wealth, economical giant essentially. And for activity in that regard, we might have the students create a garden and so on. For the entertainment side of it, we will have them research and reenact dance moves, art in terms of painting, or even reenact plays. The culminating task for the unit, which we thought was appropriate, is we want the students to write a diary, in a first person sense, of a historical figure, talking about their influence with the boom of California. This might relate to the lesson plan later on. Some of the accommodations for the culminating task is we want to give students the option between writing a diary or presenting a flip book regarding a historical figure. This will allow students with the choice to draw or write the project. So if they're not really comfortable writing and they just want to draw, that's perfectly fine. And for how we would modify it for online/distance learning, we came up with the students could present their flip book through a video presentation or use of other media outlets to still talk about their famous or historical figure. And that is essentially our unit plan, or a general gist of it. So we'll be moving on to a lesson plan that we created. Go ahead, Jay.
All right. So essentially, this plan is about getting to know California's artistic and cultural figures only in one lesson. Also, there are 3 hour lessons in which a teacher can freely, manipulate that in their own time. But particularly this lesson, which would take 40 to 50 minutes. So the learning outcome for this class is, for this lesson plan, is for students to demonstrate an understanding of the influence that historical figures have on the rise of the entertainment industry in California during the 1850s by developing theatrical, artistic, and dance activities in relation to research discovered in sets of groups. And they can have access to medias, as well as videos presented by teachers, and art supplies, which they can bring themselves, paper, maybe accessed by schools, have access to schools' resources, such as papers, hopefully, and access to props if available, and maybe have access to a library or computer labs, if there's any, so they can research, which is a suggested method for that teacher to do. Anyone who's reading this. Anyhow, readings for students before lesson is students can read about the people and history of California textbook, hopefully, as well as read other articles presented by the teacher when in groups, and videos maybe presented by a teacher regarding the historical figures and facts about those figures and their contribution to California. The aim is in 4 lessons to acquire students with good knowledge of the 6 historical figures and how they have contributed to the society. Jamie?
Oh, so now I'll talk about the standards. So for the California Social Studies Standard, we'll first analyze the impact of the 20th century Californians on the nation's artistic and cultural development, including the rise of the entertainment industry. Objectives are students will get informed and explore about the history of California and examine specific historical figures that have influenced its growth and power, particularly in that of the entertainment industry. And for the art standards, we will develop a dance study that expresses and communicates a main idea, discuss the reasons and effectiveness of the movement choices, which is the national core standard, and present a drama or theater work to peers as audience and reflect on the performance. Also to collaboratively set goals and create artwork that is meaningful and has a purpose to the makers. The objectives would be students will devise and develop a movement-based stance relating to the information explored on the subject of California's artistic and cultural development and those historical figures. The students will create artworks that resemble significant styles presented by those of historical artists within California's 1850s. And the students will also engage in theatrical interpretations of these famous works created by these celebrities, actresses, actors within that same period.
So the introduction, we start with the open discussion in the lesson, asking students about what they know about California's history. After we establish that baseline, they get a general sense of what they know. They start explaining some information of the historical figures. Some people they might know just as Walt Disney in Southern California. And this can give insight into what the entertainment industry is composed of and who works in it. Just some ground rules for the lesson, kind of like in our unit plan. It's just respect your classmates or your teammates. Encouragement is always great to encourage your group mates to research more and throw out ideas. Always be quiet when your classmates are talking or they're performing in front of the class. And if you're unsure about anything, always ask a question. You can do it to your peers or to the teacher as well. Everybody's there to help for you. And talk about the various forms of art. Art just doesn't have to be dance or artwork. It can be body movement, anything like that. Allows some of their favorite artists, musicians, singers, and even favorite films can be referenced as well. Relate the subject of the entertainment with current trends and styles of older ones from a place in which time was California was still developing. Show how far the timeline goes.
Yeah, so for the Explore and Investigate section, essentially what we want is students to be working, essentially divided into 2 sections. The first being the investigative part of it, which is more of the social studies segment. And this, we decided to introduce the research side of the lesson through breaking students up into groups of 4. So you can give them, when in groups, options to work together collaboratively on every single segment of the project, or to divide into roles that allow for quicker investigation or research. You want to remind students that this investigation and research will be presented as a group project and that everyone must contribute. You want to encourage participation and inclusivity in a sense. Students will also be asked to research a particular historical figure. That is the basis of the lesson, fitting with either one of the 3 categories we've developed. So either they'll be looking at an artist, actor, actresses, or musicians or singers. You may draw sticks or select which groups you want people, the students to be in. That's per your own design and how you, the teacher may develop it on their own. As we investigate an early California setting up to even kind of present, some historical figures to look at are like Louis B. Mayer, Walt Disney, John Steinbeck, Ansel Adams, Dorothea Lane, and John Wayne, just for quick examples. So mentioning those are the roles as earlier for the investigation. If you want to do the role side, you can have them divided into two historians, which they're tasked with finding out about the figure's life and influence to the entertainment development in California, and two what we call appraisers, which they are tasked with identifying like these figures' most lucrative works and what they're well known for. So that's on the research side. So like on the artistic or like the performance side of the lesson, what we want is to have students to like imitate or create their own pieces of art, performance, or theatrical reenactments, depending on the historical figure they investigated as a group. So like in the case of artists, so like if students are doing researching an artist, students will look at some of their historical figures' best and most renewed work, and along with other group members, what we want them to do is like just recreate that art on their own. This will be like provided materials. You'll give them pieces of paper, like colors, paints, whatever it is, to like allow them to recreate some of the work, and they'll present that as a class. In the case of actors/actresses, students will look for some of the more known movie scenes and allow the group to reenact either one or two scenes for which that figure is known for. So they'll be reenacting scenes from a movie essentially. And in the case of musicians/singers, this is where like they'll get into like a dance segment. Essentially, they'll come up with their own dance that goes along with either a song that the figure is more known for.
Yeah, and we came up with a couple of interesting ways that you can do the assessment of learning. One we did as kind of more of a group thing, and one can be more of like an individual thing. The group one is one way students can have an assessment of learning is through talking collectively about some of the people that they've learned about in the group, so they can all share ideas. Some of them may not have read about some of them. Some may have read about a couple of them, and they can all tie it back how it impacted the history of California. This can help kids focus on a certain number of people rather than trying to learn about too many of them and overwhelming them all at once. This is also helpful for kids to go more in depth about certain people that they might not know, so they can expand their learning and have a more broad background about the history. And then another one that we did for individuals, there could also be a project in which kids can pick one of the people that they talked about and learn and create a letter. We talked about this in the unit plan as well. We would have the kids select or be chosen at random of what person they would have. After getting a historical figure, the students would then write a letter in first person as the famous person and talk about some of the events that have happened in the famous person's life. The letter could be written at an important time in the famous person's life, such as a tragic event or right before they pass away, or other events like that. This can also be helpful for kids to establish newfound knowledge from the project and show what they have learned in a discussion and from the class research as well.
So our lesson plan aims to promote inclusivity. So to ensure that we will have the students perform any social or cultural dance move that they feel will be able to express themselves, and that they can also connect the dance move to the assignment. These dances are not limited to American dances, but the dance moves with non-English names are especially encouraged. Students are allowed to choose one of the people listed in the activity, and their choice can be because of connections to the person. Like, for example, in the class, we have recently immigrated students. So they might want to choose Dorothy Lang because she was born to second-generation immigrants. And another example might be John Wayne, who had Scottish-Irish ancestry, and a student with any Scottish or Irish ancestry would be encouraged to choose John Wayne because of their ancestral connection. So any modifications for online or distance teaching, students are able to record their presentation of the dance move from home if in-person classes are unavailable. And this activity would call for breakout rooms, Zoom or Teams, anywhere where students can meet in groups, and they're encouraged to research and share their ideas and thoughts together just as if they were in a regular classroom, in an efficient way. So yeah, that should be it for our presentation. Thank you, guys.